Thank you for joining us. And we are continuing with our two city council candidates. And these two folks are coming out for Precinct 3. Am I correct? Okay. There's many times where I've misspoken that. So we have with us today Al Smith and we have Nora Jackson. We drew before the program began, and Al Smith, his name came up first for the drawing. You get 1 minute to make an opening statement each. Al, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Thank you to Ms. Benavides, Ms. Mueller, and all of Albion and the recorder. We do appreciate you doing this for us and for the people of Albion. Hi, I'm Al Smith, as you probably already know. I am the incumbent for the 3rd Precinct. I've had the opportunity to serve for the past year, and I've really enjoyed what I've been able to do. I feel the one word in all of this that matters most is represent. I am here to represent the constituents of the 3rd Precinct in anything that you need. I am always available, as referenced by my email and my phone number being all over the precinct and actually all over the city. Please get a hold of me if you have any questions or problems. I look forward to this candid discussion today, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Nora Jackson, candidate Nora Jackson.
My name is Nora Jackson. I am an Albion native, born in Albion and raised. I have 2 children that were born and raised here also. I have 2 grandchildren that I love to spend a lot of time with. I am currently, I work at a Marshall Academy, and I also, I'm a teacher there. I am the student director, as I also teach the difference makers at the same time. Also, I am an entrepreneur, a community volunteer. I am a leader, and I do believe if you will choose me as your new leader for Precinct 3, you will see that we're able to communicate, get the word out, and we'll be able to be strong with one another, working together.
Thank you. All right, so this first question goes to Councilman Al Smith. Denisha Brewer, she's from the 5th Precinct. She asks, our culture in this community has been combative for a number of years. How do you plan to develop a culture that fosters a sense of community pride and unity?
Great question. I would think the first thing that we need to do is we need to sit down and talk with one another. Just try to put the differences aside for a moment. Let's sit down, look each other into the eyes as brothers and sisters, and let's just talk about what's going on. There's nothing we can't fix, nothing we can't work out, nothing we can't overcome. There is no reason that we as the citizens of Albion, we're close anyway. If you look around Albion, everybody waves at everybody. Everybody enjoys everybody else. There's always a smile, a hi, everything. It could be fixed. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. But if we would just sit down and talk through our differences, I'm sure we can make Albion a much, much better city.
Thank you. Candidate Nora Jackson, Denisha Brewer of the 5th Precinct also wanted to ask you this question, and she wanted to have some specifics since you really haven't been in the city council. What do you think needs to be done to build a sense of community pride and unity?
Well, being sensitive and building a pride, I do believe we need to be realistic, and we need to be able to sit down and have common goals. And that we need to be honest when we're having those common goals. We need to be able to communicate. And anything that is happening or going on in the city, we need to be more diverse about it. So also with the Common Pride, this weekend when she did put on the Boss Up, we seen the community come together once again, which we do know that we all can do, but we need to do it more often. not just sitting behind closed doors, but also being outside in the public as well. Because sometimes when we sit behind the public, we say one thing, sit behind the closed doors, but when we come back out in the public, we do something totally different. And we need to not be in certain cliques. We need to come together as all races to be able to show the pride that we have for each and every race that is here in Albion.
And to clarify, Denisha Brewer organized the Boss Fall Festival that was on Erie Street this past weekend.
Yes, she did, and she did a great job.
All right. And are you finished though?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Great. Nora, I'd like to convey a question to you that comes from Linda Colmaden of the 3rd Precinct. And she asks, how will you address the problem of systemic racism in our community?
Well, first of all, what I would do is I would also make it known that there is a such thing as racism. And in some shape or form, we have dislikes. We dislike one another because of certain things that are said or done. But learning to not stereotype one another because of race, but to be able to hear what's actually coming out of a person's mouth, to be able to see and know the actions of one another, and just remembering that we do have to be diverse, and we do have to understand where other races come from so that we can understand one another. And I do believe us coming together, taking courses, doing different workshops, that we can learn one another better so that we can be able to react and come to common ground as far as our diversity.
Great. Thank you. Al Smith, how would you answer that same question about addressing the issue of systemic racism in the Albion community?
I believe, number one, we have to openly and honestly admit that there is the problem, which obviously there is. And then we need to sit down, as I said before, we need to sit down together as brothers and sisters, try to put our differences aside and talk to one another. Let's figure out what we can do to help remove the systemic racism. Again, it's not going to be easy because it's been ingrained in our society for such a long, long time. So it's not going to be something that will be easy to overcome. But again, I believe that with hard work and dedication, we can all do it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councilman Al Smith, this goes to you also. This is from Sharon Hostetler from the 3rd Precinct. She has stated that she notices you driving around town looking for things that needs to be done in your precinct. So how do you plan to build consensus within the city council, as well as talking with the mayor, whoever that happens to be, on getting those things done?
I think number one, thank you for noticing that I do. Me and that old red pickup truck, we're all over the place, that's for sure. Number one, I think one thing we need to do is understand that when something is amiss, or we see something that we feel is wrong or out of place or something of that nature, the first thing most people say is the city. We have to understand we are the city, you and I, everyone who owns a property, who rents a property, who lives in Albion. We are the city. The problem is ours, not someone who works downtown or out at the street department. It's our problem. We have to first look to ourselves to fix things, and such as go all the way out to the curb when you're working in your yard. Pick up the trash in the gutter. It doesn't take a lot of work to do, and it will make your property look so much better, and your neighbors will appreciate it. So it's very easy to do. As far as working with my fellow council people, that's very simple. Right now, we have a very good working dialogue between council persons, and we just keep talking it through, and they point out what they see, I point out what I see. If there's something that we feel really needs to be done quickly, we will take it to the city manager and ask that it might be addressed.
Nora Jackson, candidate Nora Jackson. Sharon Hostler also asks a similar question to you. You know about building consensus with your program, The Difference Makers with Kids, and that's a challenge. So she wants to know, what do you feel needs to be accomplished in your precinct, and how would you build consensus on getting those things done?
Well, in Precinct 3, building consensus is being able to work together and to come on a common ground. And so sometimes it takes a little bit more work to do that. So just us coming together on meet and greets, coming together as email, coming together as blast, the shout out blast, or even just postage cards, being able to talk and communicate and understand what the need is for Precinct 3 at that time. And letting us come together as a majority saying, okay, we agree. Maybe all things can't be put together, taken together at that time, but coming to a consensus of prioritizing and doing what we need to get done first of all.
Thank you.
Nora, Dennis Reed, the second of the 3rd Precinct, asks, for those who don't have access to the internet, how would the city get the word out about community events and issues so the information reaches more people? You've mentioned a couple of, would you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I do believe since we have 6 precincts, that when we do have information, if it's coming through the city hall, through the council, if it's coming through any other entity, that with 6 precincts, there should not be any reason that no one does not know what's going on. That individual that is ahead of that precinct should be able to notify the people, which is an email, a blast, or cards, or communication, or having so many other leaders underneath you be able to channel that information out. I just don't believe that we should ever go without knowing.
What would you say is the best communication option for people who don't have internet at home?
The people that don't have internet at home, that also would be just a simple flyer being sent out, because we can send out flyers in enough time that everyone would know that there is something going on. There's other opportunities, places to go, things to see in our community or in downtown.
Great, great. Al, how would you address that issue of communication?
I think one of our most overlooked resources in Albion is the Ministerial Association. The ladies and gentlemen of that group can get the word to just about anybody in the city through their announcements weekly at their churches and during their gatherings. So I think that's the number one place we could go. Number 2, I would say easily word of mouth. We have a lot of talkers around here, me being one of them. I have no problem when I'm out driving around. Whenever I see someone in my precinct, I always try to stop and ask, how are you doing? What's going on? This is what I see happening, and at that time I can tell them, here's what I see happening later in the future, or things going on that we can get together with. So it said, as Ms. Jackson said, communication is something we need to get out there. But I think we could, number one, start with the Ministerial Association. And
in the year that you've been in office, have you used that avenue successfully already?
Yes, I have talked to, I'm on good grounds with a lot of the pastors in Albion. Thank goodness, they're some wonderful people. Right. And they're very good at communicating with their flocks.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I just want to remind the candidates to please address your questions or your answers, not your questions, to the camera. That'll make you look good. That'll be edited. Don't worry. Okay. So for Councilman Smith, Steve Tompkins, he is from the 1st Precinct. Okay. He says, we need a cheaper grocery store for people like me who can't afford family fare, even though I like it. What will you do to bring another less expensive grocery store to Albion? And if you don't think that we need one, why?
Thank you, Steve. That's a great question. And yes, we do need another option. And unfortunately, the dollar stores are not that option. Dollar stores, I don't believe, are a very good option for a city like ours. So we really didn't need a fourth one. Unfortunately, the one thing that we have to overcome first is the game of numbers. We do not have the population that will support a second store at this time. As Mayor Atchison had said before, he and a group got together and they have talked with the gentleman, I believe from Jackson, with the Save-A-Lot, and he's very interested in opening another store here. In fact, he was very close to getting things rolling when Mr. COVID came to town and kind of put the kibosh on a lot of things. But yes, we do need another store. Our issue is with numbers. As we can build our residency, which I think is the number one thing for a lot of things in Albion, start bringing in more residents and more people living here. As our numbers increase, people will start looking at us more. So I think that's going to be our first step, and we'll get another store. It'll happen.
Candidate Jackson, the same question from Steve Tompkins of the 1st Precinct. Do you think we need another grocery store? What kind? And could it be less expensive? He takes pride in, being able to buy his own groceries, and he can't at family fare.
Well, Steve, I do believe a lot of us are with you on that, and we hear that all the time. Some of them have to go out of town, and we don't want them to have to do that. But I do remember, with me being an Albion native, when we did have more than two grocery stores here. We had our own A&P, and then also we had our Kroger's, and then also my mother and father owned the Super Value store. And so we had a little competition in there, and then they did bring a Super Value here, a Save-A-Lot here, and that was wonderful. So I'm hoping that they can bring a Save-A-Lot back here. I believe that we can. I know we have a problem with numbers, but with a willing investor on the outside wanting to come into this town to make it better than what it is, I believe it will happen. Then also with us coming together and coming up with that plan as the city council member, going down there and talking together with the city manager and with the mayor, I do believe that could happen, because we have enough people on the outside that wants to do great things for Albion to see them succeed.
Thank you. We appreciate both candidates for participating today. We appreciate you for tuning in. Please be sure and go out and vote. Next up, we have candidate Wayne Arnold coming up. Thank you.